Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I will attempt to answer the question, can a Hammer Rey make a decent trail truck? I don't know if many people are asking that question, but I figured I'd answer it anyway. Simply because I end up running a lot of my rigs on trails like this, just because that's what I have the most access to. We have a lot of great trails around, hiking trails, biking trails, and I just have a lot of fun taking RCs out into the woods. That's why I typically lean toward trail trucks and crawlers, just because that's the type of terrain I have the most access to. And honestly, the Hammer Rey, especially in stock form, I don't really enjoy driving it too much at higher speeds. It tends to roll over quite a bit. I've done a lot of different setup changes to try to mitigate that. Different tires help immensely. And you'll see in this video, neither of these Hammer Reys are even close to remotely stock here. Both running. I mean, my truck right here, you'll see with the TerraFlex logos, I have some 2.2 crawler tires on it. They're just some Chinese copies. If you want to see a video on those, you can go back a few videos on my Hammer Rey, and you'll see when I was testing the tires on those. So it's just like a really soft crawler tire, single stage foam. Not the greatest in this terrain in terms of full-on rock crawling, but we're going to get into more setup issues here too. So if you want to turn this into a trail truck, I think it takes a decent amount of work. But again, if this is the type of terrain that you have access to, like nice hiking trails, biking trails, this might be the way to go for this truck. And honestly, I think it's way more of a scale driving experience. This is pretty much what you would see in real life, the trophy Jeep driving trails like this, like at King of the Hammers. Maybe not doing jumps like that, but you know what I'm saying. This type of single track trail is pretty scale for a truck like this. Some of the rocks might be a little bit on the larger side for an actual scale event, but again, way more scale than just driving this thing through a field in the park or on a baseball diamond or something. So anyway, we figured we'd get these out and just see. You know, the trail isn't a full-on crawler trail, but there are some sections that we try to crawl and stuff. But let's get into the setup of these trucks here. Okay, so both of these trucks are running sensored castle systems in them, and we do both have a remote adjustable drag brake, which you can set up through the auxiliary wire feature on the ESC. So from our controllers, we can adjust the amount of drag brake that the vehicle has. And why that's important, in a situation like this, you actually want to run a good amount of drag brake so the vehicle doesn't just continuously roll. So if you're on something that's really kind of difficult terrain, or there's like a cliff edge to one side or a very steep descent, you want to have that drag brake just to hold the vehicle when you let off the throttle, just so it doesn't just freewheel down a hill or off a cliff or into a tree or something. So way more of like a crawler type of a feature, but works extremely well. You definitely need that in any kind of trail truck, and the worse the terrain gets, the more important that becomes. So that's a huge feature. And then again, just the censored brushless has very good low end control and torque, way better than what you would find in the stock system. In terms of other stuff, I already talked about wheels and tires. My rig, again, I'm running just some Chinese 2.2 beadlocks with some Chinese 2.2 tires, you know, just off Amazon. You know, find something similar to stock size and you should be good to go. Matt is running the U4 high racks, the Proline high racks, so his definitely hooks up better. That's his truck right there. Way better traction than my tires, but I just bought these cheap ones as an experiment, and I do like them, so I may upgrade in the future just to get better traction. In terms of like other setup, diffs, if you're going to be running in conditions like this, you definitely want to, at the very least, run a much heavier diff fluid. If not, go full-on silicone earplug. That's probably what I'll end up doing to mine, just to lock it up a little bit more. I don't necessarily like full lockers, maybe just the rear, but the rest of it, when you're driving through rough terrain like this with roots and rocks, and you have a lot of power like these do on 3S, 4S, it puts a lot of strain on the drivetrain. If you're really giving it the beans and that wheel catches and gets traction, there's a good chance you're just going to tear something apart. So I like the silicone earplugs because they have It drives more like a full-time four-wheel drive, but it does have enough slip in it where if you do catch something really hard, or if you're in a bind and you give it too much throttle, it's going to give just enough. And I drive one of my Rifts like that too. I have, instead of it fully locked, I have earplugs in it, and it works really well. So that's probably what I'm going to do for this, seeing as how I really like this truck in this terrain. So I'll probably be driving it more in this type of situation here. But other than that, a lot of it's just suspension tuning, you know, dial it in, see what you like. If you need heavier fluid, lighter fluid. I am running a little bit heavier fluid in this. You'll see right here, bam, smacked my axle into that rock really hard, and it actually broke my bulkhead. It ripped the top link, where the top link mounts to the bulkhead, it ripped the bulkhead right apart. So ended up fixing it with a zip tie. I was able to continue on, but you know, when you're pushing these trucks in this type of terrain, you can expect some failures. Overall, it did really well. Even after zip tying it, it held up. And the only other issue I had at some point later in the video, I'll try to point it out, I did smack my front wheel into a rock hard enough to mess up my steering. I didn't pull it apart yet, so I'm not sure what's up with that. But overall, they held up really well for the type of abuse that they took. So to answer the question, can it make a good trail truck? Hopefully the video kind of shows you what its capabilities are and what its limitations are. So I'm going to leave that kind of up to you. In my personal opinion, I think yes. As long as you're not really expecting this thing to be like a full-on rock crawler, I think this makes a fun trail truck. You do have to adjust your driving style a little bit. It has a very long wheelbase. It has a pretty wide track width and a very flat, wide chassis, at least on the front section. So here's a good example of the drag brake right there. Really good. So yeah, with that chassis being low and kind of wide, it bellies out on a lot of things. So if you're driving in really rocky terrain, you really need to adjust your driving style, and you're going to need momentum to get through things. You're going to kind of have to, you know, almost kind of jump your way over little rocks and stuff that would catch it up, or at least give it enough throttle to lift the front end up until it clears. So it's not, look, it's not really made to be a trail truck, but you know, you can kind of make RCs into what you want them to be to some extent. So yeah, this because it has a solid rear axle, it does have independent front. It may not be like typical trail truck, but it's there. You know, it's close enough. I think the key differences are to get a good censored system in there with some drag brake, but still retain enough wheel speed where you can do fun things like this. So it's a very different driving style in terms of like what you would typically expect out of a trail truck, say like a Vanquish Phoenix or a TRX4, you know, high trail. You know, they have they have more of a high speed for a crawler, but it's still not high speed. You know, this thing can still rip really fast, doesn't have a 2-speed trans, so you lack a little bit of that low speed that you would need for real like crawling, but you know, some speed, some momentum, and you'll get up through some really tough obstacles. And I just think it's a lot of fun. Rock here, so to me, the answer is yes. This can make a good trail truck. It's a different driving experience, which is kind of what I like about it. You know, if you take crawlers out into the woods at some point, they have different capabilities, but they all kind of end up doing the same thing. Same deal with trail trucks. So I like just taking a truck into a different environment and just seeing what you can find to play around on. So really comes down to your terrain as well. You'll see like here, we have big drop-offs and stuff, and it's really fun stuff to play on. You know, we didn't plan on doing things like this. We're like, oh, we'll just take it out on an easy trail, and you know, it shouldn't be too bad on these trucks. And then we just find big drop-offs like this, and inevitably we have to jump off of them. So, but what's funny is that drop-off didn't cause any damage. You know, it's really just smacking into rocks sideways. Really did most of the damage on these trucks, and you'll see toward the end Matt actually rounds off one of his wheel hexes on his wheels, so he didn't come away unscathed either. But a lot of fun. I recommend it if you want to take your Hammer Rey out into the woods and play around a little bit, and I think you're gonna have a good time. So in terms of setup on these trucks, another thing I'll mention is we are both running a Vidavon rear sway bar, which is significantly stiffer than what is stock on these. And stock ones, that rear sway bar that you can see is non-functional. It doesn't do anything. It's just there for appearance. But it does have a stock, a sway bar that mounts to the lower trailing arm. So on mine, it's removed. I'm not sure on Matt's if he has both, but on mine, the stock one is removed, and I just have that Vidavon rear sway bar on there. Significantly stiffer, so it's up to you if you guys wanted to experiment and see. In terms of a trail truck, the stock one might be fine. I know for really faster, like U4 style driving, kind of racing around on flatter ground, taking turns very fast, the upgraded sway bar really does help a lot, but it does really limit your articulation. So in trails like this, I'll have to do a little more experimentation with it connected versus disconnected and just see. I didn't really have any complaints with that. Yeah, I just figured I'd mention that in case you guys want to experiment too. But that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, hopefully the video kind of showed you what its capabilities are out on the trail, and you can decide for yourself what direction you want to go with this truck. I really liked driving it like this. So cool. Overall, great truck. I love it, and just show you a couple different ways you can enjoy this truck. So hopefully you guys like the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later, guys.